on this side so that it can be a
Sure.
The local carrier there is just not responsive.
Oh.
They're not technically capable of delivering services.
So let's do some basic stats here. So how much does it cost? How much? What does it cost?
In Wilsonville, I can't even get a quote.
Oh, can't get a quote.
They only work through agents, and none of the agents know what they're doing.
Okay.
And so I went to TPX, a carrier in based in Pleasanton, I guess. I've been working with them for years, and they will do deals with other carriers and manage the end-to-end network. And they couldn't even get quotes. So we're running, over Comcast cable in Wilsonville, and the only service we can get.
I see. Okay. And how much does that cost?
I think they're paying around $540 a month.
540.
Around $540 for 150 by 75. No, 150 by 15 asymmetric service.
Strikes me as kind of expensive, no?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I've got 150 in my place, 150 by 15, and I was paying.
Oh, you're talking about here in Palo Alto.
In Palo Alto,
Okay.
I was paying about 130, and they took me up to about 250, and I got it back down to 150 by calling and saying, "Hey, you got to give me a break."
So for 150, you said 100 megabits.
150 megabits down, 15 megabits up.
Okay.
And guaranteed bandwidth because it's business grade. It's not. It's not residential.
Okay. And you're not paying for phone or TV. That's just straight.
It's they own the cable modem. Best to let them do that because they keep upgrading their technology.
Yeah.
And they give me 5 static IP addresses, which I can't get on my residential service, and I need that to be able to securely manage remote networks.
Oh, I see. Okay. I see.
So,
And how does this compare to, other places that have like fiber to the premise? Like say they have that like Chattanooga. Like how much does it cost there?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Or any that's not.
See, fiber to the premise has several components to it. One is whether it's a residence or a business building. And AT&T's new basic AT&T business fiber, they call it ABF. If they have fiber into the building and they have one of their Sienna routers in the building, the cost is quite reasonable. I think it's. I haven't looked at the prices in the last month, so it's a few hundred a month for a few hundred megabits in both directions, symmetric service.
Oh, I see.
Very, very good. It beats anything that's actually been deployed.
And again, business.
Business,
The numbers in your head are mostly business numbers.
Yeah, they're all business. Even my own in what is a residential area.
Your house is a business.
Yeah. And it's because I don't want to compete with my neighbors for bandwidth when the Super Bowl is on.
Okay.
So for fiber, actually, we reached out to someone called Utopia, and what they said is that they're dedicating a single strand to each household. What are your opinions on that?
I believe that if you have a well-engineered infrastructure, it doesn't need to be fiber to the endpoint. In fact, it's expensive to make it fiber to the endpoint because the fiber interfaces that go fiber to digital are still a few $100s. But it's got to be well engineered. If you get to a local place, a local distribution point, where you can run gigabit over copper.
Well, you can?
Oh, you can run gigabit over copper.
For short distance, yes.
Yeah.
And I have that with my house. Within a house, you certainly do it.
Oh, no, you can do it over longer distances than that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then upgrade to 10 gig. What's the distance then? Okay, I don't know either. It's just, the religion is once you've got fiber to the premises, then it doesn't matter how fast you need to go. When the electronics shows up, you will go that fast.
Right. But copper to the premise exists or is easy to add now. And fiber to the premise requires a huge infrastructure investment. One of the things that caused me to get kind of stirred up about this is the 5G argument, because we need fiber distributed to a lot of places in order to power an effective 5G network. And I think for mobile users, that's the next level of nirvana that we can hope for. But the other thing is, I have a customer in Hayward, in the commercial area over 880 and Whipple, and they have a couple of buildings in a row, and we have two AT&T reasonably priced internet services and firewalls connecting them securely, because we couldn't get fiber under the parking lot without a huge construction cost. There's a new company in, I should remember their name, and it's Tech something. There's a new company in Hayward that got a construction permit for the commercial area. So it's not an individual permit, it's for fiber construction anywhere in that commercial area. And they're using underground drilling. And they can get me gigabit point to point between two locations a couple of blocks away for $450 a month.
But can you just string it up? Do you have to necessarily dig a borehole or something like that? Or
String it up and run aerial.
Yeah. Or is it not reliable?
Aerial is less reliable, but most places won't let you run aerial cable like that these days.
My impression is you need permission from whoever owns the poles, right? And they may not have space, so it may take some time for them to make space.
Well, there are places in a lot of areas where they don't have poles, where everything has to be underground.
Yep.
And I think the all new construction in the area is underground. I don't see poles in the area. But and you know, but the thing is, they can do it in 2 weeks because they're using smart drilling equipment. They're using a very small company, but they're very astute at what they're doing, and they can respond. And I'm frustrated to read a 2015 master plan that wasn't relevant in 2015. If I read it as a reviewer, I would say
the Palo Alto master plan.
Yeah. If I read it, I said, well, this is incorrect. This is theoretical. I don't know anyone who ever has it yet, and this is never going to happen.
So what were the issues?
Well, for example, the AT&T 1 gig to the consumer for it's either 110 or 130 a month was the price quoted. I don't know anybody in this area has ever gotten that service. My arm's not quite good enough to throw a rock to hit the central office near me in the Ventura neighborhood, but I can't get any high-speed service from AT&T. I've got to go to Comcast for static IPs. So I mean, they said Comcast will shortly be delivering 2 gig symmetric service point to point for $300 a month. That's it.
Sorry, that's in the 2015 matchup.
Yeah.
Does it say only you're in a quarter mile of their existing infrastructure?
Well, a lot of T's and C's that aren't in that plan. And just the whole, and plus internet years are a whole lot like dog years. I mean, they're huge multipliers. In the business I do, probably half the information I use on a regular basis changes every 3 years. If the most important part of my business success is not what I know, it's what I continue to learn. And a 2015 plan is just hopelessly out of date. And anything that doesn't have a sense of urgency, doesn't have a trigger, it doesn't move towards some measurable goal is just, we're wasting money on paper.
So what would a measurable goal look like?
Find a trial neighborhood. If you want to show this thing can be done, start doing it somewhere. Start doing it anywhere on a non-trivial scale.
Okay, would 67 houses be non-trivial?
67 houses is a start.
Okay, we did that in 2001, but the political climate was such that we tore down the infrastructure in 2005. So that gives you some kind of idea what we're up against.
Yeah.
And then you say, so basically what it sounds like, you don't, you think that fiber to the premise is quite expensive and that we should use copper to the premise, correct?
I think there are alternatives. And I think, the idea that someday people are going to want 10 gig to the premise, not in the next 3 years, but maybe in 10 years, with things evolving so quickly, so unexpectedly. Technology is accelerating. It's not moving at a constant high speed. It's accelerating. But you can come back in 5 years from now and replace that copper with fiber with newer technologies and smart drilling and do it more reasonably.
And then, so you're basically saying we should implement this for now and then wait till the technology is developed enough to we can do it at a more reasonable cost.
If you're going to go fiber to the premise, you're still going to go to some distribution point, and the fiber will fan out from there. So if you have existing copper from there, use it today.
That's what the incumbents have and what the city lacks. City doesn't have copper going to anywhere.
Yeah, but we have the consent decree. One of the banes of my existence is Judge Green's 1983 decree that broke up AT&T. And our telecommunication infrastructure has suffered seriously ever since.
I don't understand how that gets the city into the business of owning copper already.
You don't need to own the copper. Yeah, you can get wholesale price from AT&T, and AT&T has to maintain it. And if you have your techs properly trained, and I think TPX is one company that does, they can actually climb poles and touch AT&T's copper on poles.
So you're saying you'd keep the AT&T solution in place and let them expand more and maybe help them out a little bit too?
Pay them wholesale rates as defined by the consent decree. Let them own the last mile of copper. And if somebody comes along like this guy in Hayward and can give me fiber or better copper or a wireless solution from that point that gives me the speed I want, great. But you gotta make it possible to build, and that don't let that last mile block you, because AT&T's largest customer in California is TPX, and they're the largest customer because they're buying that much last mile copper at wholesale. Telepacific used to be their name. They changed it recently. They changed their name to TPX. The Dick Jalkut is their CEO. I think he used to run Verizon way back in the day, and he's turning that company into an international company now. But they're huge in California, and they give you better prices and a bill you can understand. And my customers love them.
Well, since PG&E, as far as I'm concerned, well, as far as I know, internet isn't as regulated just as utilities are, right? Because internet is not considered a utility, is it?
In a legal sense, I can't answer that. In fact, it is one of the more important utilities we have. You don't know the Dewey Decimal System, do you?
Well, I do know. Yeah.
You do. Not many people do anymore. You Google. You don't need it.
Well, no, it isn't regulated like a utility, right?
Right. Well, telecommunications is regulated, heavily regulated, but very inconsistently. In the internet itself, the FCC impacts the effectiveness of the internet, but it's no end-to-end coupling there.
Yeah. Okay. So, what's to prevent AT&T from jacking up the prices from $30 to $100 because they want to show, shareholders that fourth quarter's profits are
Those wholesale rates are regulated.
This wholesale rates. But what about end consumer rates?
If TPX sells me a circuit, AT&T has to come out and terminate the circuit at the minimum point of entry. They call it the MPOE on the corner of the building somewhere. And we only have to open the door for them. We don't pay them. We have no deal with them. TPX arranges for them to come out and do that. Then from there to our premise, and for any customer premise equipment, TPX puts that in. They roll their own truck. They put that in. So we never deal with AT&T. So AT&T has no piece in that.
TPX sounds all enterprisey. What's to stop me from getting TPX? It sounds pretty good from what you're talking about.
You've got to be a certain size before their pricing starts to be very attractive.
But like maybe you can create an organization to buy bandwidth off of TPX and then
someone could create an organization like TPX that's buying this last mile. The city of Palo Alto could buy this last mile of copper at wholesale rates. Now, whether the city wants to be in that business or wants to contract it out to people who have decades of experience doing that, that's a different question.
But wouldn't it be more cost effective if we just develop our own infrastructure solution, especially as well like a long term? Because maybe that might work for short term to depress rates, but if we want to, create an open market or something like that.
The problem with that idea is the timing. I mean, I'm 72 years old, so best case I got maybe 30 years left if things go really well. And I would like to see this happen in my lifetime. And so far, when I look at the progress between 2015 and 2019, it's not going to happen in my lifetime.
So you basically gave up on the idea of city doing it. So you're just looking at the most viable.
I give up on the idea of requiring a whole new infrastructure to be deployed before it makes sense. Now, you can use different transmission technologies. For example, if you have 5G really widespread deployed, you could get gigabit to the premise in a few years as the 5G network builds out. But that requires fiber speeds to the 5G nodes. And there have to be a lot of them.
It also requires licensed spectrum to operate the 5G, right, which the incumbents have and C doesn't have.
But that's true.
But
I'm thinking more of having a licensed company providing that service. That's a way not to have to rebuild the entire infrastructure. The other thing is what kind of exciting news. I know we disagree about how well practical is, but Elon Musk is going to start blowing tiny repeaters around the planet.
Yeah, but it's just high latency though. It's not really worth it.
No. High latency is when you got to go out to a geosynchronous satellite. This is faster than terrestrial fiber from coast to coast. What he's proposing, because it's low altitude.
But doesn't it make it susceptible to atmospheric events like solar flares or something like that?
I'm not an expert in the nodes they're doing. They're very, very advanced technology they're using.
Yeah. So, but it sounds like from what you're saying right here is there's like a lot of choke points where if companies just want to jack up prices. Why don't? What's wrong with? Where should the city step in, and what should the city do?
Are you trying to convince me that there's so many choke points that we just shouldn't pursue this?
Well, no. I'm just wondering what the city should do, right? Because I think there's a lot of ways for the private industry to do something. But what should the city do?
I don't know enough about the political side of things. I do know a lot about the technical side of things. I don't know everything about the technical side, but I know how to get the right players together to make something happen. But if the city is stalled and construction is darn near impossible to get approved in a reasonable time frame within the city, which is the experience I've had, and that means that, Hayward's going to blow you out of the water. Because they're going to put something in, or they're going to let a private guy come in and put something in that solves not the entire residential problem, but certainly down to the small business level, going to solve that problem, and they're going to do a beautiful job of it.
Well, the city, I think it's universally acknowledged, the city doesn't do a good job at all, right? But what would your opinion be on, say, have you heard of Utopia?
I've heard the name, but it's...
I could walk you through. Basically, Utopia is just like a conglomeration of a bunch of cities in Utah, which they've developed like their own kind of corporate entity that manages their network. And basically what Utopia said to us, actually at a meeting, was that Utopia would come to our city, build out the network, provide their proven solutions, like lay out the fiber, put up the proper equipment, and then just do customer service. So what would your opinion be on some private entity like Utopia doing this?
If they can do it in a cost-effective manner in a well-defined time frame, beautiful. We need a solution, and it doesn't have to be the lowest possible cost. It has to be a reasonable and affordable cost. But what's affordable here is a little different than what's affordable in a small town in Illinois.
What would you say if they said everyone who gets it has to pay $3,000 either upfront or the equivalent in a month-to-month?
That's impractical.
Okay.
But wouldn't that be like the cost to hook it up to your house or something like that?
These guys in Hayward are not charging for construction.
They are charging for construction.
They have a higher monthly rate, but they're not charging for it. A 3-year term, and then no charge for the construction.
Yeah, but then you could theoretically bake that cost into your fees, right?
Well, you could, but for the idea that it costs $3,000 per house seems excessive.
Yeah. By the way, I think the number they actually quoted was $30 a month, like forever. But in other places, they have said an alternative is like, $29.50. I don't remember the exact number.
So what would be a reasonable number for a hookup?
I can't answer that.
Or like what price range? Which range?
What would I pay?
Oh, you'd say zero.
No, I would pay a lot because I'm running a business. If I got what I needed, I would pay a fair commercial price. But I realize that households in a community like this are going to, I see people, they're paying $79 a month for something from Comcast, and they're looking for, next door, they're looking for something cheaper.
Oh,
They
yeah.
live in $1 million house, but they want to save that, $10 a month. I can't fault them for that, but it just, makes the idea that everyone will buy in. It's kind of impractical.
If we were to implement a solution, at what price range would you see be expected to be reasonable for gigabit?
What solution are we providing? We're going to get gigabit to home and business premises
Yeah, gigabit.
and provide sufficient internet connectivity bandwidth on the back end that there's no choke point, and make certain business features like static IP addresses available.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
What would each Paul's resident be paying each month?
Well, that AT&T deal, whether it was $110 or $130 a month for that service, seem like a hell of a deal to me. I would think that 200 to 250 a month is not a deal breaker for a whole lot of people. And I think that it's only going to become more affordable as we get into higher speed communications, more 3D visualization, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And what are your opinions on FTTN versus FTTP?
I think he heard about it
You
20
had,
minutes ago.
well, no, I know what the node is. You had a node that serviced 265 Lytton, and the city did a deal with Yipes, and they put access to the building. But then Yipes was on rocky ground, and I couldn't find anybody who would give me internet service, so I had to run a financial investment company over a pair of T1 lines. I bonded two together to get 3 megabits per second.
And by the way,
Fortune for that.
that wasn't FTTN. Staff's invention of the term FTTN is newer than that. That's the old dark fiber network.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you don't, I mean, whoever got connected and was the owner of it, if they were hard to work with, then the city isn't going to be able to help you out of that.
But I think fiber to the node is practical. But you've got to have the other piece of the solution, that's node to the premise. And that's the other piece. You've got to have probably multiple solutions. AT&T copper, somebody leasing AT&T copper. I'm not sure. Lots of different ways to skin.
So what do you think is the best way for Paul to get faster, cheaper service? But what would you recommend
What will be your next step?
the city do to kind of encourage that?
I'd have to learn more to be able to give you a reasoned answer to that. I mean, you got a lot of history, a lot of investment in this that I don't have. So I'm not the guy to come in and say in a half-an-hour meeting, "Oh, here's a solution. You missed it all along." Because I don't have the facts. I don't have the perspective. I just know that what you got to do is build a fire under somebody and make something happen. Or 4 years from now, I won't be willing to have this meeting again because it would be proven to be a waste.
Mm-hmm.
Something needs to happen, and there needs. I went to work for Rome after they were bought by IBM. They were the original computer-based telecommunications company. And I was told my first response, I was project manager. I had marketing responsibility for project management for data products. And I was told my first priority was to get a synchronous data module out of development. And this thing had been going for 2.5 years. And I went to 4 weekly meetings with 16 or 18 or 20 people. And I listened very politely. The 5th meeting, I sat at the head of the table. And I said, okay, I've heard enough. I understand what the issues are and how do we solve them. And somebody said, well, who are you to say that? You can't say that to us. And I said, listen, this is what I'm responsible for. Who the hell said this was a democracy? And we got that product out in 7 months. Just by focus, commitment, and stop overthinking all of the little details and missing
To ship the
big
product.
picture. Yeah.
So I realize you may not know the exact answer, but what would be the range of possibilities that might encourage a fire to be lit and things to happen?
Well, these guys in Utah sound interesting. I think we could find some people with large commercial interests to sit down and talk to us. Given the city of Palo Alto, I think we could set a meeting up pretty quickly to get some other people with some other ideas to come in and try to start something on a fast track. People smarter than I am about this, but
Wow. I thought we already found this like expert, but
Oh, no, I know the art of the possible. I continue to try to deploy it, but I rely on other people to do their part. There's a certain set of what I do that I do best, and nobody else is any better than I am. But there's a whole bunch that I don't do best. And I know so much that I realize how little I know out of the whole spectrum and how I got to reach out to get other expert input. I would imagine that we could get some senior technical guys from TPX. Maybe somebody with some regulatory experience and understands the last mile copper thing. Bet we could get somebody like that to participate just on a volunteer basis. I know that AT&T is getting aggressive about installing more fiber to business premises, and they're not charging for construction now. A new deal. This is news that's three or 4 weeks old. I think we could probably attract someone from AT&T. I don't know if it would be if we could get anyone meaningful or not. Remember, this isn't the old national AT&T. This is Southwestern Bell that we're talking to. I think the guys in Hayward, I think they would have some interesting input. A piece of the puzzle, not the whole puzzle, but how to get fiber quickly and easily to a building, to an apartment building.
So Jeff, can you give Homer kind of like a brief overview from your perspective what the current state is for Palo Alto in terms of what we should do or what cities think we should do?
Well, what staff is going to propose on June 3rd is another flavor of FTTN. We've been considering that for approximately 2 years. And staff is coming back and saying, oops, we made a mistake. The RFP we wrote doesn't ask for what we now want to ask for. So let's forget about those 2 years and start from the beginning and write an RFP. And 11 days before June 3rd, you'll be able to read what their staff report is, so you'll know what they want to ask for.
What was missing from the old one?
Sometimes I get so upset I don't even remember anymore. The new one wants to accomplish in one step what they previously wanted to accomplish in 2 steps by doing a second consulting study to do this and then doing another consulting to do that. Another thing is different from when they started out a couple of years ago. The city wants to put in smart meters, and forever they've said we don't need no stinking fiber for smart meters. But recently they've said, oh, we changed